turns the light on.
There's still people working their way in, but we're going to try to start on time. Welcome to all of you here that have come, and also to those who might be watching via live stream. I hope you're aware that we're live streaming as many of the events as we can during this weekend for those who are not able to come in person. So you're part of the live stream, so be careful what you say right here. Don't pick that up. Only nice things about Dottie. We are going to give you what has become a tradition.
Speak as loud as you possibly can.
I can. We are going to give you an update at the cabinet level. And so basically each of us represent an area. I'm going to finish with kind of an overview of a lot of things that are going on campus beyond what you've already seen. So I'll be the end of the show. And I'm going to start with Dee Reed. Dee has been with us, and you've probably seen her at reunion, doing reunion-y things in the past if you've been here. But Dee has a new title and role at the college. She is our Associate Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And this is something that Dee and I were moving toward for several years, and recently made, well, not that recently anymore, made the official announcement. And so in that role, Dee is already doing some amazing things. And we started with, we wanted to make sure that the experience of all of our students on campus was what we hope it would be. And so to address anything that we might need to work on to improve the experience of an ever-diverse group of students. We're becoming more and more diverse. And additionally, working with the faculty, staff, on anything that pertains to the same ideas, and an outreach. We're looking to reach out. So she owns some important relationships for us in Terre Haute, in Indianapolis, and beyond. So in a year, she's done amazing things, and I'm not going to tell you because she is.
Thank you. Good morning, and welcome back, everyone. Good morning. In the past year, we've taken several important steps toward establishing a strategic direction for our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. This included listening and learning from colleagues and diversity professionals, as well as gathering and analyzing the data from our campus climate surveys from faculty, staff, and students. This process resulted in creating a strategic diversity and equity plan for the college. And it became very evident quickly that...
Speak a little bit louder.
Sure, I'll try. It became evident very quickly that inclusion, belonging, and equity would be our focus. As a critical aspect of creating a more inclusive environment and engaging in important dialogue, we realized that self-reflection is the beginning. And I will tell you a couple stories about self-reflection from some of our events. The first is from our law enforcement panel. We had a law enforcement panel discussion with our students that focused on interactions that students might encounter with law enforcement. We had them from local as well as state agencies. After the event, one of our students emailed me, and I'm going to try to remember her words, but these are probably not verbatim. She said, "I always had negative thoughts about police because of all the police shootings of people who look like me, and I was afraid. I was afraid that I would be next. But after listening to them explain their policies and procedures and explaining how interactions should typically go between citizens and law enforcement, I will remember that, and I won't be so afraid." Now, the content of that is a little bit disturbing for somebody that's 21 years old, right? But the event itself did exactly what it was supposed to do, and that was to provide students with the opportunity to understand how to have high-stake interactions with law enforcement. The next example I will provide for you is it occurred when we had our microaggressions workshop. And that was a short video that we showed of college students, and they were explaining their experiences with microaggressions, as well as our own students that were sharing their experiences. So in this setting of faculty, staff, and students, we presented that session, and someone raised their hand at the very end, and I was always excited for this person. She's always very positive, so I knew she was going to tell us that this was an awesome thing, right? And instead, as she began to speak, her voice was cracking and tears were in her eyes, and she said, "You know, I'm afraid that I have said something that I just heard in that video, and I'm so sorry." Well, her intent was not to harm or be harmful in her words, but she did realize in that moment the impact that she did have, whether it be intentional or unintentional. Now, we've just heard some examples of people who received an aha moment, right? And that was through education as well as empathy. First, we presented them with the opportunity to examine their own opinions and biases. Second, we provided new thoughts, new perspectives, different viewpoints for them to consider. And then finally, the last step, they took that upon themselves, and that was to internalize everything that we've been sharing. Now, I can't possibly tell you that everyone who participated in an event this year had that same reaction. But what I can tell you is that mitigating biases, engaging in difficult conversations, meaningful conversations, will always lead to introspection, contemplation, and ultimately change. Thank you.
Dee has been, for so many reasons, the perfect person to take on this role, not the least of which is her demonstrated love and commitment to St. Mary of the Woods College. So she's well respected among all of us, and she's a personal friend of mine, and Dee and I just sat just this week and exchanged stories just with one another about what's going on in the country and how we both feel impacted about it, one of us being a Black woman, one of us being a white woman, and our own experience, and I felt like I grew, Dee, just my conversation. So I think as you shouldn't be surprised by, St. Mary of the Woods College often models the way the world should work. We're not saying that there aren't lots of problems in the world, and we're not saying that there aren't lots of ways to look at those issues. What we're saying is we want to sit down together, and we want to care about the people involved, and together we want to move forward. And when I mean together, I mean together. And that's what we're doing at St. Mary of the Woods College with Dee's help, and I think it's making a great difference for our students. So thank you, Dee, in advance for all you're going to do. Next, a little musty in here in my throat. Dr. Janet Clark oversees academic and student affairs, and she's going to give you an update on that area.
Good morning, everyone. Great to be able to address all of you. made myself just a short cheat sheet, because there's just so many things I could provide to give you an overview of what's going on in academic and student affairs, and I think it would be difficult, so I really might try to just give this small little overview, and then really want to hit the highlights of some of the new areas and the new programs that are growing here at the Woods. You know, it would take me probably a whole hour if I really dug into all of our academics, and so just know that we are continuing to always provide those strong majors that are always the foundations of many things: education, science, the psychology, business. All of those areas have seen some success and excitement because our enrollment is up. And so, you know, faculty are just doing their job of currently keeping their curriculum current and relevant. What are the trends in employment, and what does the workforce need? And so it's a great activity for faculty to always be doing some program review and assessment of student learning to say, are we giving our students what they need? So just know that that is always going on in the background, and the faculty are doing a good job of keeping our stuff relevant and intentional for the students. And they did it this year in the lens of COVID. And many of you may have heard some of the stories about how challenging it was for universities and colleges to pivot, to move and get everything online. Luckily, St. Mary of the Woods College was ready for that. Our long history of Woods Online and online programs, we pivoted really well, and I am so proud of that, because almost all of my faculty had already taught online, had already had courses that were already out there, and so they had to make tweaks to make it fit for their campus population. But we knew how to do it, so it was not quite as challenging, and I believe we were much more successful with student satisfaction in the type of education, and we were not interrupted because their education was kind of crumbly or just not shored up because it was all brand new. We didn't have to sink a bunch of money into quickly teaching faculty how to do that. So I'm really grateful for all of that happened, and our students seem to really rally behind that. So after all that, then we say, well, what else exciting and new can we be doing to bring more students to the Woods? And many of you may be aware, about 6 years ago, we had a Lilly grant that allowed us to start nursing. We have often long wanted to do nursing at the institution. It is our largest campus program now, and our graduates are getting jobs immediately, and our community is telling us that they love the nurses that we bring to those fields. So we're very excited by that. So you've seen a little growth, and we're going to continue to see growth in the health sciences. And we had in the science department a health and wellness program, and we've really kind of brought that along to meet a more sophisticated need that's out there in the workforce. And we did this with some Lilly funding that we recently received from the Lilly Endowment. And it's helping us grow our kinesiology and add a new program in exercise science. Those two areas are really great for careers as athletic trainers, nutritionists, any kind of health field. It's all about human movement. And then how is that different from exercise science? Exercise science takes it up a notch to be a little more clinical. And if you're going to move forward through a doctoral program in physical therapy, athletic training. So we're really excited by some funding that we're receiving now to help us launch exercise science this fall. We've already launched kinesiology, but we're going to up the equipment that we have, do a little bit more marketing, and be able to launch in some additional faculty lines with this funding. So very excited. Our students coming in are gravitating towards those majors. We're bringing in a lot of athletes who like those majors as well, so it's been a great fit. The Lilly Endowment Fund also brought us the funding to start what is going to be one of our most exciting programs. It's been a very exciting part of my role as a VPAA to offer our first Ph.D. program. For the Woods to have a Ph.D. program is so exciting. And for any college and university to be able to add that level of a degree for our small footprint, I mean, it's been very exciting. It was a very challenging process to add that to our accreditation. It's a big deal to offer this level of degree from like the administrator lens. But besides that, the program is going to be a PhD in global leadership. And that adds to the strength we've been having with leadership. We have a master's degree in leadership development. I see many of you in the audience who have that degree. And what is going to be very exciting is it's a Ph.D., which is research. Besides teaching students the skills to be a leader, we're also going to be advancing the knowledge around leadership and how leadership is developing, especially in a global context. So I'm very excited by that. I think it's a natural fit for who we are, being a pioneer in many fields. And our leader who's starting that program is Dr. Lamprini Pantazzi, and she is the Dean of Business and Leadership and Director of that PhD program. She is a native of Greece, and so she brings that wonderful diversity and that international experience with her to this program. The program will have a study abroad component. It's a 4-year degree. Again, it's going to be research. It'll be research from all over the world. We'll have connections and collaborations with international researchers as well. So we're very excited to take this big step. So, and then lastly, I kind of wanted to talk about a second set of money that we're receiving from the Lilly Endowment Initiative, and it will help us address some of our retention initiatives. Bringing all these students to the woods, bringing them to relevant programs and whatnot. The other piece is making sure they have a satisfactory experience and that they retain and complete their degree. So we often know what makes challenges for students, what makes them need to step out of their program or whatnot. And sometimes we haven't always been able to address it to the level we'd like to. So we've been able to be the recipients with several colleges. There's a group of 5 colleges, 5, that are, it was spearheaded by the University of Indianapolis to begin some real big retention initiatives. And the first part of that retention grant is to develop a model based on your data at your institution, an algorithm that's going to help you see and predict the retention of your students, see and predict where they might step out, and then that informs you of what kind of retention initiatives to fix, shore up, or add. So we are so excited by that. And it's going to also help us, like I said, do some of the things we've known we want to do, create a stronger student success center, where we bring together the career development, the learning resource center, the peer tutoring, those kind of academic assistance. Bring that together with more experiential learning and all the things that go together to make a satisfactory student experience. So you'll see that kind of growing. So with maybe remodeling some spaces, as well as adding new initiatives that help our student success. So I'm very excited by that. I think that that's gonna make a big difference across our campus. So just a little bit about student life, and then I'll kind of wrap it up. I'm sure you can see how excited student life might be by adding a second residence hall and a new dining experience. So it's very exciting for them, and they're gearing up for that. But a lot of this year has been spent really in the context of COVID, creating experiences, still making our campus experience normal, and they did a wonderful job. We still had over 250 events for students who were living on campus. So our students were on campus, they were going to class, and they got to have clubs and organizations, activities, because they would create them in a hybrid model. They would create them to have a little bit of a smaller group several times. They did what they could to make it normal for students, and again, give them that engagement that needs to be there with their academic experience, so they had a successful semester. So I'm really applauding my student life staff. They also had to keep track of quarantine and feeding kids who couldn't go to the dining hall, keeping track of mental health and providing resources and a person to talk to, or just somebody to share some concerns with. And so they handled all of that while they also still provided a fun and exciting experience. So a lot of great things going on for our students, and we're gonna keep going. So, thank you.
Thank you. I also want you to know that Janet alluded to COVID, but she led the COVID task force, which has been in place since February of 2020. And so it led us through, sheltering in place, reopening plans that we worked on all last summer, reopening safely in a face-to-face format, navigating the entire, academic year. We've had a testing clinic in January when we brought our students back. We had a vaccination clinic that we held, and our numbers have been remarkably low. We had no, what I'll call outbreaks. We did have positive cases, but then that didn't spring into a major outbreak of any kind. And I really think Dr. Clark and the team deserve a lot of credit for that. I also would give our kudos. They're not here, I don't see any of them, but our students. We heard stories of fraternities, sororities, parties, and those were the source of some outbreaks. And our students, we asked them to protect our face-to-face experience, and we asked them to protect our community, which does include the Sisters of Providence. And we reminded them that the Sisters of Providence would be because of the age of vulnerable community. And we believe they did exactly. They were responsible with their behavior, and it made all the difference for all of us. So, woohoo! Next, Karen Dyer oversees the advancement operations, so maybe some of you have had conversations with Karen regarding fundraising, but she also, you may not know, is the leader of our strategic plan. And under her guidance, it's become not a document we put on a shelf, but a living document that we keep up with, we make reports on, and so on. So that's been a key thing that Karen's accomplished for us in recent years.
Thank you, Dottie. When Dottie asked me to take over the strategic plan, which we did in the 2015-16 timeframe, I thought, well, that'll be interesting, but it's really very smart of her, because as the strategic plan creates initiatives for the college, whether it be new programs or new facilities or renovated facilities, it needs funding. So I get to see firsthand what the priorities of the institution are, and we all work really well together. Janet leaned over before we started and said, I'd like to add some more faculty lines. You think we can get some fundraising for that? So everything that she said has a component that gets funded. So for example, when we started the nursing program, we had $1 million from the Lilly Endowment, as Janet said, that helped hire the faculty, do the marketing, prepare the facilities, and so all of that's really important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other projects that you may not know that are going on campus. You've seen LaFair, and that we have, I think, 150 signs around, so just in case you have any want to make a gift, you can talk to me about that, but all spaces are marked that are able to be named, but we have some other projects as well. This building is one, but Dottie's going to talk about that when she finishes, when we're finished here. So I'm not going to talk about this one, but we have a little project which Dottie calls our side hustle going on in Garin, which is maybe a favorite building of some of you. Some of you spent your freshman year there. We're looking to update the elevator. We'd like to better utilize our second, third, and fourth floors for offices and classrooms and other spaces that we need. The third and fourth floor aren't really very well utilized because we don't have a proper elevator to get us there. We have 2 elevators, but if you've been in it, one's a freight elevator and one's about this big. So we're not going to use that one. So we need to work on some handicap accessibility issues. So we're doing a little bit of fundraising for that. We're also looking at expanding the Nerley Center, our newest building before the new residence hall, so that we can help grow athletics, which I'm sure Brennan will tell you about in a minute. We're adding a men's basketball team, and we have several other sports that we're going to add, and it's a little too small, and there were no men's bathrooms or locker rooms built in the building when we opened it in 2014. And now we need that. So those are a couple projects. We're looking at doing some renovation in the library as well. Janet talked about the Student Success Center. We're planning for that to be the second floor. Libraries today are different than they were 50 years ago, and a lot of the library is electronic and not actual physical books. So we're using it as our welcome center for admission. It's where our financial aid is. We have a learning resource center, and so on and so forth. We also have our archives in the lower level, and we're looking to help combine our archives and our sisters' archives to create a new permanent home for archives in the library as well. So those are some of the projects that we're working on that we're looking for funding. So I don't only ask all of you to give, but we also look for grants. We're preparing right now to put in a $2 million plus proposal to the Department of Education to help fund some of these things. And we have other grants kind of in the queue outside of the Lilly Endowment. So now I'm going to move to alumni. During COVID, it became really hard for us to interact with all of you. So I want to say that I appreciate all of you who logged into a virtual alumni experience. We did a whole bunch of them in the fall, and we're so glad to be here in person today. But we think that we might be able to use some of what we learned throughout the year of COVID to help connect more alumni who maybe can't come back to campus very often, or who only get to come back once every 5 years, or some of you have never been here since you graduated. So we're going to look to continue that, and I ask for you to let us know this weekend what you would like and how you would like to stay connected with us, because we really feel that that engagement is important to our relationship with you and your relationship with the institution. So, all right, thank you very much.
Hiring Karen certainly made a difference at St. Mary of the Woods College, and she's become a travel companion, a trusted friend, and honestly, I can't say enough about the role she plays on the cabinet, really keeping us together. We maybe have called her the cabinet compliance officer before, making sure everyone arrives where they're supposed to and has the right shirt on or whatever. So she keeps us together. It's a talent. Next, we have Brennan Randolph. He has the distinction of being hired one day before we made the co-education announcement. So when he stands up, you'll be able to easily see why he became my bodyguard for a while. He walked me to my car, which the funny part about that, he's definitely tall enough to be a bodyguard, but he's one of the gentlest men I know, so I don't know how much help he would have been if someone came. I think he would have done his best. He just truly is a gentleman. He's a perfect fit for St. Mary of the Woods College, in addition to his role of enrollment management, and he's had great success and leadership. He also oversees institutional technology and athletics. So he's really a strategic thinker. He works well here, and he's in the not enviable position of sitting on a cabinet with too many women. He often threatens us when our talk, don't think bad, but we'll just get off to talk like women do, and maybe we get into personal lives or whatever, and he's threatening to go to HR all the time. So, Brennan Randolph.
Well, good morning. Appreciate everyone being here, your interest in what we have to share with you this morning. I want you to go on a little bit of a journey back in time with me to about March of last year. So you all knew we were going to talk about COVID like 35 times today, right? So imagine my concern and my thought processes last March when I told all of my staff to go home, take their laptop, work from their living room or their couch, and continue to recruit students for a program that we weren't sure how we were going to deliver. It was definitely a very difficult time for all of us, but I believe that the admissions office, we picked up our equipment and we ran home and we figured out how to conduct business within the environment that we were all managing in our lives. So it was definitely an interesting experience, and from that we leveraged a lot of things that we had in our strategic plan, one being the investment in and improvement in some of our technology. So we have what we call a CRM, and it's nothing more than just a database of students that we are recruiting, working with through the application process, and there are all these bells and whistles that are attached to a CRM, and it's designed specifically for higher ed. And we were at the point last spring of deciding if we wanted to go into a new direction of a CRM, in other words, a new vendor and a new solution. So we took that opportunity with everyone at home on their couches to be able to deploy a new CRM within a matter of months. So by June of last year, from when we kicked everyone off campus to June 1 of last year, we wrote a new application, we launched a new CRM, and I will tell you it was probably the best decision that we've made in a long time in our technology area, and solutions that are helping the institution move forward to invest in this product. So if you've seen it, or if you go out and look at our application, or if you apply for maybe a Ph.D. program, I see some of you in the room that might want to consider that, you'll see the new bells and whistles that we've been working on very hard over the last year. I've been in this business, this is my 23rd academic year, it's my fifth CRM. I've never seen a CRM be stood up and live within a matter of months. So it was quite an accomplishment between marketing, admissions, IT, and many others to get this going. I share that with you because we had to conduct business differently. Imagine when I told everyone to go home, including our coaches, and their normal mode of recruitment is face-to-face, traveling to events, traveling to games, going to high school fairs, going to high schools, and we couldn't do that any longer. Frankly, we've done very little of that in the last year. My travel account went like this as far as expenditures. So we had to invest that money in different ways, in marketing avenues that we were pursuing, as well as having this technology that would help us to recruit students better. And admissions had to conduct business themselves differently. So instead of working with students like you would imagine on a tour or a visit, or if they go out, they had to utilize technology, the phone, the email, all of these things that we've had in front of us in some ways for a long time. We were able to still conduct visits. We had kind of ups and downs as we were managing the COVID, the pandemic mess we were in. And we were to the point where we could allow visitors again, and we were doing individual visits, so we had a lot of protocol in place. We operated in a very safe environment. Not every institution was doing that. I will tell you that there were some, and maybe there still are, that were still saying no visitors, no students that wanted to visit the campus could come. And we found ways to make that happen. It's a small environment, it's a safe environment, and we had to find ways to be able to welcome students to the woods. All of those efforts, I think, did a couple of things for us. One, you know, it's been mentioned a couple of times, the Woods Online program, our online division, the success that we had with being able to pivot, but we also were able to experience enrollment growth in our Woods Online division. In my 6 years, the enrollment, the head count, the hours sold, everything that we use to manage where we're at with that program is the largest that it's been. And I think if you think about some of the students that are out there, their comfort level may have shifted to online because of the pandemic, and we've seen some of that. I think we will continue to see that for maybe years to come. I don't know. But we've had a lot of success in our online. There's a lot of solid infrastructure and services in place, and we've had good retention, and we've had solid enrollment numbers in online over the last year. The other thing that it did is it really forced us to think differently about the campus student. Being able to make sure that we were, from an admissions standpoint, informing, educating, helping them to feel comfortable coming to campus and knowing what to expect. So last summer, we did a lot of virtual events. Marketing pulled together a virtual experience, a tour. We did this was actually through athletics because we were getting ultra creative. We used our live stream infrastructure to literally take one of our student ambassadors that works in admissions around campus, and we invited anyone that wanted to come to watch this experience from their own home. And we were just being as creative as we could to open the doors and roll out the red carpet and be welcoming to students as we were trying to figure this out. So a lot of positive came from the experience, and to be honest with you, the average student today is the way that they want to be recruited, the way that they want to research a college or university is shifting anyway. Most of them are utilizing technology, they're utilizing search, they're utilizing these things today that are much different than years ago, where they may have picked up a magazine or a paper, or even in some cases watched an advertisement on TV. A lot of these students don't watch TV in the same way that we do. So their information and their connection to an institution is very, very different. As far as numbers, everybody always wants to know the numbers. Last fall we had 499 campus students, which, to be very frank with you, was the exact same number we had the fall before, 499. I know, consistency's good, but I was really aiming for higher than that. And our class last fall was a little bit bigger than the previous, and we did see a shift in some of those students that had committed maybe pre-pandemic. They moved to online, so we didn't necessarily lose them, but they left the campus program, the campus experience. And for this fall, our numbers are looking really good. You know, in my world, we talk about the admissions funnel. How many applications do you have? How many of those students are admitted, and how many of them have committed? And that funnel is very strong, and it's performing at and beyond where we were last August, if you were to compare year over year. Dr. Clark talked about the new programs, exercise science, sports management is another one. These are all things that are helping more and more students to realize that we have a good program for them and a lot of things to offer. The new building, I could go on and on in athletics. From an admissions standpoint with the campus, we're trending in a really good direction for this fall. I do believe that we will be north of 500. I've told Dottie it has to be north of 500. She's told me it has to be north of 500. So we won't get into all that. But then the online program, I think, will continue to be strong in this next year, potentially grow. And our graduate programs, Dr. Clark mentioned the Ph.D., obviously all of that is going to help us move into a growth pattern. Over the last several years, if I look at the total unduplicated headcount, so really the number of people, the number of students we serve on an annual basis continues to grow. And we're approaching 1,300 students for this current academic year that we are serving. They're coming and going at all different points, but 1,300 people that we would serve in the year is where we're going to be very close for, once we wrap up this summer enrollment. I want to talk a little bit about athletics. Karen mentioned growth. The men's basketball program is coming on this fall. We have a really good coach, Dr. Inslee Mitchell. He's actually also a faculty member overseeing our sports management program, as you would imagine. And then he's very involved at the graduate level as well. So he's been very, very good for us over the last year. And we did announce recently the addition of men's volleyball that will come online in fall of 22. And we have a lot of plans. Karen mentioned the strategic plan, the master plan, all of these things. A big important part of that is athletics and the athletic complex on the north side of campus. So we have some things we're going to invest in this summer that will help track and field. We need a parking lot, which is not very glamorous, but necessary. And then we have some other things that we plan to invest in with the equine facility from the athletic standpoint, as well as soccer and the softball fields. So things that you might see in the future, men's and women's tennis, additional track and field enrollment because of additional growth that we would have in facilities, and really the sky's the limit. So we just continue to look at what's the best move, what's the next best addition for us with athletics, and it absolutely is an important part of our enrollment growth in recent years. The last thing I'll talk about, which has been mentioned several times, is just technology and the investment in technology. So our IT office, no doubt, has been extremely busy. Last March, when we told everyone to go home, we were grabbing equipment from every nook and cranny on campus and giving it to people so that they could go home and work from their couch. And they made it happen. We pivoted very quickly, and no doubt they provided a lot of support to the faculty to be able to move to an online delivery in few situations where maybe they had not done that before. They continue to look at our infrastructure and things we need to improve on. The new building has definitely been a huge project, and we have deferred maintenance in IT as well. It may seem a little silly because technology in a lot of ways is still really fairly new for us, but a lot of the stuff that's behind doors that you don't see needs improvement, needs replaced, and there's a schedule for that, and we are working to develop a better plan for the future to make sure that we're swapping out equipment to ensure that the students today that come in are receiving the kind of bandwidth and wireless service. Essentially, that's what they want. I don't know exactly what the number is, but I would guess that a student today, when they come to campus, they're probably bringing 3 to 4 different devices that needs to connect to our wireless infrastructure. They have their iPhone, they have their iPad, they have a laptop, they may have other devices that they're wanting to utilize, and that's just the day and age of the student. One funny story, and then I will be done. So I'm at home during the pandemic, and by the way, I really struggled being at home during the pandemic. And I'm on a Teams call or a virtual call, and I'm having a lot of trouble with this thing performing. And we actually have relatively good internet where I live. And I come out and I realize that both my son and my wife are students and they're studying at their laptops. But the problem was my daughter. I go into the living room, she's watching Netflix, she has her phone doing something, she's on Facebook, she has her MacBook Pro out in her LMS, and I don't know how many devices this kid had at her disposal. That is today's student, folks, and that's what we have to manage and be prepared for. So thank you very much.
Brennan did tell you how his team learned to pivot during the shelter in place, but I want you to know I talked to so many presidents who were wringing their hands last spring, a year ago, and saying, my people aren't out and about, we're not recruiting any students, I don't know what's gonna happen in the fall, and I didn't have that story to tell. My people were safely, but they were figuring out ways to do virtual tours that they could send out. We had virtual visits with families. We had, once it became safe in the summer, we started having those isolated individual visits. They were just pushing forward. And Brennan really leads that with that kind of attitude. He won't ever tell you because he is a humble man, but he delivered our mail during the shutdown. He came out here every day and delivered our mail. Sometimes we would be on a cabinet call and we'd have to have Brennan, and all we could see was him walking across campus because he was delivering the mail. So, I appreciate it. Last but definitely not least is our Vice President for Finance and Administration, Jaclyn Walters. Jaclyn came to us a few years ago. She was our controller, and she likes to remind us, so I'm not doing an HR moment, that she is the youngest of us, and she is a very young Vice President. But I sleep a whole lot better since Jaclyn's doing her job. I have no financial surprises. She looks around doors and all of that before I do. So she's been a great addition. In addition to what you think about finance, the budget, which is a hefty thing to manage around here, she oversees a lot of areas, including the new building. So she's really figured out how to speak that language. So everything from the maintenance of our older facilities to construction of our new facilities falls under her. I will tell you, she does enjoy a nickname. We all call her the CF No, because she will be really excited if some amount of money finds its way to us, and she'll tell us because she's a very bubbly person, like, oh, we have fill in the blank, $50,000 that just came, and then she'll say, but we can't spend it. So those two sentences go together with Jaclyn. Jaclyn?
Good morning. I will say the work that my colleagues are doing makes it very hard to keep saying no to them, but no. It's still easy sometimes to say no. I am very privileged to work with this team, and this team helps me do my job. I couldn't do my job without them. We did a campus climate survey. Dee mentioned it. In the survey, the students identified lighting as a major issue on campus. So with the help of Karen and some unexpected bequest funds, we are replacing some of the lighting this summer. We will have about 20 light poles that will be replaced, updated lighting, LED lighting, so it will make it safer and make our students feel better being on campus after dark. So we're really excited about that, and I think the students were really happy when we shared that news to them. We went through a dining services proposal this spring. We included students, faculty, staff. We sent our RFP out to 5 companies. We had 3 companies submit a proposal back to us, and through that process, we identified Bon Appetit to be our partner moving forward. Bon Appetit is a farm, fresh. They use local food, local produce, local eggs, local meat, very forward-thinking with sustainability. And they're currently at Rose-Hulman, Trine, DePaul, Wabash. So they have a lot of campuses in the area. We'll have the support we need, and we're really looking forward to starting that partnership on July 1st. Our students were really happy. It was their choice that we picked Bon Appetit, and when we went through the financials and the proposals, we agreed with them. So they did a great job helping us identify our next partner. Our campus is going to be extremely busy this summer because I can't say no to them all the time. So if you've had a chance to see the 2 North community bathroom in LaFayette, that was recently completed. We have 2 stacks of bathrooms being completed this summer along with window replacement in those bathrooms. In addition, we will have a renovation beginning in Holman Hall in the bottom floor. Where the bookstore is now, that moves into the new building, that area will become faculty office, a lab for exercise science, and a classroom for exercise science. And that's all funded through the Lilly Endowment. That will be going on. In addition to that, we've got softball field work, equine work, all kinds of work across campus. And we really hope that when you come back in the fall or next reunion, you see all the work we've done. So, thank you.
Well, I'm going to wrap up with some information, and then we're going to give you some time for questions. Hopefully, you can see, however, that if I've done nothing else right, I've surrounded myself with rock star people. They are a joy to work with, and we are a good team. So thank you to every one of you for what you're doing. I want to tell you, in addition to what Karen has talked about some of our fundraising, I want to tell you a little bit about this building and what we're going to be doing. But before I do that, I hope what you're sensing is two things. We're a college that's moving forward in big ways. There are lots of changes going on. But I also hope you know that we don't forget who we are and who we belong to and who we came from. So we honor the legacy of the Sisters of Providence and all that means to us in all that we do. We think about that. Even our global leadership program, when I was asked for a quote, and of course I'm exciting brand new program, I really had to think about Mother Theodore being a global leader. She left everything that she knew. It was a long time ago, but she was definitely a global leader. She came to an area that was not her own, where the culture was different, and she filled a need. And that is global leadership. And so we stand on her shoulders and all of the sisters that came after. And so we remember who we are, we embrace that in our mission, and we're a college on the move. Because, you know, there was a day that needlepoint was a major part of the curriculum. How many of you signed up for that needlepoint? Because the world changed. And there was a day that home economics was not only a very important program, but a very important program at the Woods. We had one of the best. And guess what's not very likely to enroll any students now? A home economics program. So the values of the institution stay the same, the mission stays the same, and some of the things that we do look very different because we have to meet the needs of today's students, and they are very technical focused, and you'll see us adding programs that align with that. We even have a club sport, not like a scholarship, but a club sport in esports. Who knew? But they don't work out. They do this. They're good at it, and they like it, and it attracts them here, and it's us keeping up with what students demand for today. So, in the spirit of what I'm telling you, we are also doing fundraising for the Sicilian Auditorium, which pretty soon will not be called the Sicilian Auditorium. It will be called the Sister Marie Brennan Harvey Auditorium. We have been in a silent phase of raising money for a long time, and we've now completed that silent phase. And we are now going to open it up to the rest of you in a Take a Seat campaign. You might have noticed outside or not, but one of the real seats from this auditorium is out there. Let me tell you what's accurate about it and what's not accurate about it. It's got a new seat cover on it, and that's accurate. That's the fabric and color and all of that. The handrails have been refinished. That's accurate. So you can look at it when you go out. What's not accurate is we picked a color to paint the metal part of the seat, and we don't like it. So that metal part, imagine it being gray, okay? But, so we have a theater company in Chicago that's gonna restore these seats professionally for us. It was interesting when we had them do it. We needed a price and we needed to see what it would look like and all of that. But we found out that these seats are very attractive to theater groups. They offered to buy them. We said, no, we don't want to sell them, we want to recover them. So we're also I'm gonna kind of use this as a visual of some other things we're gonna do. I'm standing on a false front that's not original to this stage. The original had a formal, what's called a proscenium, that's been covered over for a long time because we needed an extension of the stage, but we're covering something that's gorgeous and historic. So we're gonna take off the false front, and then we're gonna have constructed for us a temporary front for when we need it. In other words, sometimes you'll see the beautiful proscenium, and sometimes you'll see something that's added on, but we'll be able to collapse it and put it away so that we don't forever cover the beauty that was part of this building. This building did open in 1913, and this auditorium is patterned after a famous one in Germany, and it's the famous egg-shaped acoustics that make the acoustics very good in this room. The one in Germany was destroyed during World War II. We have the only one. So everything from the dome to the construction is historic. So we want to preserve that, but look around. Preserve doesn't mean don't change anything. So I've addressed this. We also have several trip hazards up here that we're going to eliminate, and then we'll have a lighted aisle. The seats will be getting new paint on the metal part, so will the floor. Everything will match. We will also be doing paint on the walls, so bring everything up to speed. These lights will all become LED. And then there's some other work, some ADA work that we have to do to make it ADA compliant. The aisle will be lighted. I don't know if I said that, but there will be some ADA work in the back and down the sides. So just a general facelift. The brass rails will be repolished. At some point in time, those brass rails were painted. Who knows why anyone did that, but we will be taking the paint off and restoring the brass. And so we look forward to some grand opening and a ceremonious part of that. And we're down to the Take a Seat campaign. With success in that, we're ready to go. We will also be doing an update on the restrooms, because you don't want to invite someone into a beautiful ceremony or event here and then have them go in less than great restrooms. So we'll be updoing the restrooms on this side, and then we have received a grant from the National Historic,
Archaeological, yeah.
what she said?
DNR is the department.
And with that, we will be addressing some of the problems on the front steps that you see. So we'll be doing some work on the front steps. So you're sitting amidst my visual aid. If the seat you're sitting in is good, then come and look at the front row before you leave. And so what we need to do is, we have been gifted with beautiful, historically perfect buildings, and it's our job to keep them up to date. My biggest challenge right now, I can tell you what it is. It is trying to do that balance between growth initiatives and keeping up with the deferred maintenance to make sure that we're bringing these buildings along and not just outgrowing them. What we don't want to do is get to a point where we've let it go so long that we can't restore them anymore. So you'll see us keep working on initiatives that propel us to growth, and then you'll see us talking about things that we're restoring and repairing. The Dyer elevator is another thing, because we really need to get to using those upstairs floors, and in order to do it, I need an ADA compliant elevator, and I don't have one in that building. So that is our update, and we will now welcome questions. We are live streaming this, so if you say a question, say it loud enough that we can hear it, and then I will repeat the question to make sure that folks can hear it, and then we'll do our best.
How much is each seat done?
I'm going to leave that to the sign out front. I think I can tell you if you wanted one seat, it's $300, and then there's different pricing for 4 for $1,000 and a row for this and all of that. So What our hope is to sell each seat, and then we'll ship them off in sections, and they'll come back and be, while they're gone, we'll be working on the floor, and then, can you imagine what it's gonna look like? One of our alums is really working with us, and so when you see the covers, the seats you're sitting in, I don't know what color you would call that. What I'm told is that they were originally kind of a mauve, that was maybe even closer to a little bit of a burgundy. They've really been there a long time and faded. We're looking at red, and basically that was Catherine Martin. She's a theater major from St. Mary of the Woods College, and she kind of got looking through what theaters of this style, what would be the color that would really best fit the, you know me, I was kind of like, blue? Could we do blue? And she was like, no, Dottie, it really needs to be red. And I said, okay, she's a theater major and I'm a math major, so I let her do blue, or red, I mean. Snuck in. So the red is the fabric, that's authentic. So, but there's a sign outside and there's a seat. So a little more information. Oh my goodness, yes.
Are these seats big enough for the obese?
Say it again.
Are the seats large enough for someone who was obese?
We may need to look at that. We know that these are not the original seats to this building, and the originals, why do I know that? Because we don't throw anything away. The original seats are in the attic of Gary, and in the little theater, and they're definitely not wide enough. These are the second iteration of seats, and they're wider than the originals. So far, I think they are, but maybe that is something we need to look at and include some bigger ones.
And we'll have ADA, we'll have special.
Yeah, we will have ADA accessibility.
Could you distinguish for us the differences, what's owned by this college and what's owned by the Sisters of Providence, and a plan for the future of if we will have an option of buying different properties from them, land or buildings?
Okay. The original buildings that were deeded to the college the process kind of started in 1968 and concluded in 1971. It wasn't just like a one fell swoop. There's a big folder and I've read it, so I understood the history. So the ones you think were deeded to the college were. So Holman Hall, LaFair Hall, the guest house, the library, this building, and Guerin became the property of St. Mary of the Woods College. Everything else was the property of the Sisters of Providence, including all of our athletic fields and equine area. We owned the building that we owned the stable, but we didn't own the ground it's set on. During a few years ago, when we went through a process where we restructured our own debt, we used that as an opportunity to buy acreage from the Sisters of Providence. And so we moved from being a 65-acre campus to a 311-acre campus. So what did we buy? Well, on this part of campus, we bought Woodland Inn and Corb House, but we gave the sisters the right to live in them indefinitely. In other words, as long as you want to, when you're finished, they're ours. And so while they live in them, they maintain them, and we just act the same as when they were not ours, but we do own those two properties. And then we bought the athletic fields and the equine area that we were already using, and then we bought 90 acres. If you think about where the soccer field is, there's a flat, not tree piece of ground. It goes north all the way to the Bolton Road, and then it hangs to the east in an upside down L. That's our 90 acres. And then we bought another 85 acres. If you would drive out the north gate, the equine gate, across the street, there's an 85-acre stretch we own there. It was very strategic what we asked to buy, because athletic growth and equine growth, And then these two buildings give permanent access to the College of the Avenue. And I think that's pretty iconic to the college. There are discussions about the future, but right now, the Sisters of Providence are continuing in ministry. What they have, they need and use, and so that will be for future boards and future presidents to talk about, to continue the discussion. The only other things that I neglected, the little white house that's north, we did buy that, and we are in a discussion about buying the little white house that's adjacent to LaFair Lake. So, because we're always looking for things that are close to what we're already doing, not just randomly buy land. So, but there is a discussion going on.
Could you address LaFair Lake?
Say what about it?
Who owns LaFair Lake?
We own LaFair Lake. LaFair Lake was my first of many mistakes. I early on wrote a grant for $300,000 with a local foundation and thought I could do everything I needed to do to bring that lake back to repair, including I thought a brand new bridge, the whole thing, and whew, there was my naivete. So LaFair Lake has had the dam repaired, a sinkhole repaired, the lines that feed the lake repaired. It has been dredged. We have eliminated invasive species. We have, with help of the Indiana Wildlife Federation, we have taken down the dead trees. We have created a walking path around it that is 1/2 mile, and we have erected with some special donors a brand new outdoor classroom that's also a habitat that's used by our biology department for studies of a natural habitat. So we've done all of that with the $300,000 and lots of good friends.
Can you talk about, or why don't you talk about the faculty for the PhD program? Who are they? What are their credentials? Where are they coming from? What are they teaching?
Yeah. The faculty for the new PhD program, I'm going to defer to Dr. Clark, but this is something that the team worked on a lot. So we have hired 2 people full-time, and, well, Lamprini being one.
Right. So Lamprini will be the director and one of the key instructors, and we have just hired a second person who also was part of the development team. So right now I'm going to, this fall, have 2 full-time, and then a core of folks who will be working for us in the adjunct capacity, and we will think about bringing more on each year. So it's not unusual for hybrid types of programs to have adjunct faculty because they bring that expertise. So we don't yet need them all full-time because each year more classes will come on as well. So it'll grow. So right now the development team was a team of about 6 individuals, 3 that were associated with the college and 3 outside experts in leadership who were well-published, well-connected, and helped us develop. And so that was a part that the Higher Learning Commission was pleased with, that they understood we went out and looked for folks, but it will be a challenge and something we continue to really think about to make sure we have strong research faculty. That's new for us to be, again, at a PhD level, doing a lot of research. We'll be bringing them on as that program develops and it's time for the students to begin doing their research. So I think you'll see a change in some of the amount of scholarship and publishing that now comes from our faculty, and it'll be very intentional. And Lamprini has been very intentional to help us understand how to grow that culture. You know, we've had a culture that had graduate programs at a master's level, very applied, some research. Our art therapy and music therapy do research, they write theses, but the MHA, MLD, Master of Science in Nursing, more project-based, more application-based. So you'll begin to see a shift in the institution to do more research, and that it's very exciting. So,
If you're wondering about the size of that, going along with that question, though, we will probably have a brand new cohort every year, and the number will be about 15 students. But you can imagine it's a 4-year program, so at some point it's just like when you bring on freshmen who become sophomores and juniors, and yet you're still bringing in new freshmen. we'll be layering that. So at the peak, we could hypothetically have 60 people in the program at once. So we'll need faculty.
As a follow-up, will the cohort component or anywhere in the program include an on-campus experience?
Oh,
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
I
Yeah.
think it's 2 or 3 times a year, absolutely.
All of our programs do. Martha, hi Martha, I haven't
Hi,
seen you
Dottie.
yet.
Martha Moore, class of 61, and just congratulations to you and the staff. I'm amazed every year at what you accomplish, and I'm proud to call St. Mary of the Woods my home.
That's very nice, thank you. Because honestly, what keeps me up at night is keeping the college open and making sure that I hold on to the legacy that you hold so dear. Those two things.
You're amazing.
Now that we are at the PhD level, does it become easier to, in the future, add PhD programs in different areas?
It does. With our accreditor, the first 3 have to go through a pretty rigorous review process. But yes, our institution is now approved to offer terminal degree level, PhD level programs. The first and second, third programs will get a little bit more scrutiny, but we are, as an institution, able to add more of those degrees. So we will be. She challenges me with that every day.
The board asked me this year to put together at the beginning of the year, and I've worked on it all year, a 5, 10, and then beyond vision for the college with regard to some specific categories like academic affairs and the facilities and partners with the college. And one of the things I reported to them recently was that I see us adding our second doctoral program within 5 years. And do I know what it's in? No. I'm really happy with the misty image of a future and let things form and just let Providence have its way.
Explain some of your determination to get that PhD program and the reaction you first received and what you did and how we ended up where we are.
I was very determined to get a PhD program for this reason. I see that the precious undergraduate program that we call St. Mary of the Woods College, when we all think about, even though we know we have all these other things, we all think about that 4-year residential program. And the only way to protect that into the future is to surround it by other things. And so I believed that the PhD was next because of several things. Our success with the master's programs in general, and specifically the leadership development masters, made me believe that we were well poised to do it. And I'm always inspired by the sisters historically and how forward-thinking they were. That there must have been at least 1 million times if someone were looking from the outside, it would be like, what are they doing? You know, because they were always just a step ahead of what everyone else. For instance, our art therapy and music therapy programs were added in the late 90s, and everyone else is catching up now. But it's 2021, and we've been doing this for a while. And that is the story of the Woods, and I thought we had stopped doing that kind of thing for a few years. I think it was out of just scarcity of funds, and that brings about fear, and we had stopped innovating. So I was very eager for us to really embrace that part of the sisters that push the envelope. What are the needs? How are we going to meet them in a really spectacular way? And I believe this PhD program is the next thing that we're doing that's going to meet the needs. Global leadership, think about it. We're all in the midst of surviving a global pandemic. There are going to be lots of challenges to the world that need a global perspective to solve. And St. Mary of the Woods College is going to be preparing not only those leaders, but adding to the research in that area.
Excuse me, Dottie, thank you for all you're doing. Your alumni board has to report for duty, so we're not leaving.
Bye. Thank you for reporting for duty.
It looks like a whole gaggle of
It looks like a whole people to think, I hate PhD programs. Yes.
I have a question about diversity. Could you let us know what is the composition of the current student body or the expected student body in terms
Okay, you're putting us on the spot about numbers, but I'm a numbers girl, so you're gonna correct me if I'm wrong, because I tend to hold on to numbers. We're at more than 20% men, we're not quite to 25% yet. We're growing. So those of you on the board or whatever, remember when we made the co-ed announcement, I said I was never gonna talk about just recruiting men, because this was not about men, it was about more women too, equally. So we wanted to provide a great experience for men, otherwise that wouldn't be us. But this was as much about attracting women to this institution. We have grown much more quickly in women than we have men. Like if you just do head count numbers from the time we made the announcement till now, we've grown more quickly with women. So I'm really pleased with that. But the young men have brought diversity, and they have brought a richness of experience and a great vocal experience on this stage and other things. So other kinds of diversity, the total that I looked at for our total head count for last academic year, we were about 9% African American and about 9% Hispanic, and you tell me if you think that's wrong.
I think isn't it 9% of all students of color?
No, that was high.
No, it was broken
I
out.
mean, for campus.
Oh.
For campus.
Total, it was in the
Yeah, I'm
20
going
range.
Yeah, total head count.
I'm going total. And then the incoming freshman class last year was 18% African American, and the Indiana demographic, just population-wise, is 18%. So I thought I was really pleased with that the incoming freshman class kind of matched Indiana. Now, we don't just recruit from Indiana, we have 35 states represented. However, it just gives you a benchmark. That's who lives in Indiana.
She asked about
Our
international.
diversity is increasing, and athletics are increasing it, and then you asked about international. Athletics is also increasing our international diversity. Our coaches are recruiting. Were it not for COVID, we were gonna have a basketball player from Italy and a couple from Kenya, and the women's volleyball coach was recruiting from Kenya, and
None of them came.
not the kind of thing where it's a big bunch from one, but it is increasing our numbers. And also remember, we do have the English Language Institute that also was troubled this year. We look for that to pick up, and that's another one of our diversity initiatives. Did I answer you?
You did.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think I'm between you and lunch. So, thank you for coming.